Without much delay, okay, let me just do a very quick one. First and foremost, thank you for spending the next 60 minutes with us. This event is actually run by this Blackstone Consulting. My name is Paddy Tan. I'm actually one of the managing partner here. And today our topic is about AI and data science. I think without much introductions about what is AI, what is data science, and all this, I think I'll just quickly jump in. The next 45 minutes we'll have these three speakers. We're having questions, answers, and all that. And then the next 15 minutes will be spent with Q&A, okay, by any of the attendees here. Okay, as more and more people come in, I think we can just quickly start first. So among the three speakers, let me just very quickly do a short intro. Okay, we start with the oldest one, and then we go by the youngest. Okay, so that we will not discriminate. Yeah, the oldest one is actually cool, by the look of it. Okay, yeah, cool. Go ahead and introduce yourself, and then we follow by Adrian, followed by Leslie. Thank you.
Okay, thanks, Paddy. Hi, everyone. This is Cool here. You can talk. Yeah. So, to cut it very short, I spent 20 years in the space of data and AI. So I started my career in 2004, doing research assistant and all this. Then after that, went to the banks, doing risk management, doing reporting, doing their data server. And after that, I felt that the banks was not much fun dealing with data. I mean, disregarding the politics. So I went to join the master's program, went to work for a master's program in a local university here. So what I do is I scope projects for the client, for the company. Then after that, I also supervise the master students on their projects as well. But for now, what I'm doing right now is I'm a consultant and trainer in this space. I'm a bit slightly different from other trainers and consultants. So what I do is I help companies to build out capabilities in data and AI. Thanks, Paddy. Yeah, oldest next to the next oldest, please.
Thanks, Q. Hi, everyone. I'm Adrian. I'm British, but I've lived in Asia for over a decade now. A bit about me. In the past, I've worked for some of the world's largest tech companies. I've built and sold a few tech businesses as well. These days, I live in Singapore and I lead the commercial strategy and negotiations, actually for one of the largest Singapore-based AI companies incorporated in Singapore. But in my spare time, I actually really enjoy helping smaller businesses boost their performance and efficiency, often actually through embracing AI tools. So I'm very excited to be on this panel today. I think it's a fantastic panel with some awesome industry folk. And thank you very much, Paddy, and Blackstone for inviting us.
Hi.
Leslie?
Yep. Hi, I'm Leslie. So I've been in this space since about 20 years ago when I started my postgrad in statistics. So during those days, we just called data mining. So there's no fancy words of like data science or I mean, not much of the AI. So AI these days has been quite different. And I think over the years, things has evolved and the knowledge has changed as well. So I've been in different spaces, like from engineering to software development and also onto some research as well during my times in UK. And of course, I also been lecturing part-time previously as well. So currently what I'm doing is I'm in the venture building space. So I'm kind of like a gatekeeper for investors. So we actually did look at some startup to see that are they really AI as what they claim? So, but too bad, I think a lot of times we see too much hype. So I just have to be the gatekeeper and say, okay, these are the company we can invest or these are company we cannot. And along the way, we will actually kind of like help startup to enhance their, their capability as well. So let startup grow like a few times in their valuation. Okay, that's all about me, and probably we can pass back to Paddy and just get the things rolling.
Okay, thank you very much, guys. Yeah, just to add on to what Leslie shared, it seems like every startup these days has to have some element of AI. Without element of AI, it doesn't seem like a startup. I think this is kind of a trend. When blockchain came in, almost every company is a blockchain. When crypto came in, everybody is a crypto. I think between all these, fancy words, this trend and all this, I think a lot of people actually get confused. what is AI, what is data science, and is it a repackaging of words that we play around with? Is this a repackaging of things that is no more fashionable but have become trendy again? So, question to the floor, not to three speakers here. I think this is something very interesting. You see, for example, how do you really envision the integrations of AI and data science, okay, to in terms of transforming them into the industrial, like traditional industrial, now in the next decade? Let me just expand my questions. I think what a lot of business owners these days, when we talk about AI, they were like, what? We have not even sorted out what is AR. We have not even sorted out what is VR. So now you're already telling me AI. Is it another version of machine learning? Is it another version of peer learning and a whole bunch of all this? But aside all these confusions, so how do we actually see AI and even data science, transforming the traditional industry? Because this is important. If owners don't see themselves, okay, I'm not on the forefront, then should I be catching up? Question to the floor. Maybe I can roll this off to Ku first. What do you think, Ku?
Okay, so how do I see the whole industry is this? Okay, so because of the word digital transformation, now a lot of us are now collecting digital data. So digital data, most companies are not going to leave it there and not use it at all, given the fact that digital data can provide certain value. So what's going to happen is companies need to excavate them, need to excavate value from it. And if you ask me, terms like, for instance, like business intelligence, probably people you might heard about it. Then there's like data analytics, data science, and AI. I will all put them under the toolbox of excavating value from data. So at the end of the day, these are all the different tools that you can use, right, to get value from your data through like analysis, through data visualization, through machine learning, and stuff like that. So to sort of summarize the whole thing is really, at the end of the day, right, because of digital transformation, we're collecting a lot of data and we use all these different tools to excavate value from data. Yeah.
But you see, the thing here is that, okay, I agree what you say, Ku, but here's the problem. But for companies who has been considered as a traditional businesses or traditional, industry, because to be honest, what we are doing today, 10, 20, 30 years later, may be considered as a traditional. Okay, so if that is the case for folks who are still in the so-called traditional industry, so how do you think they should actually catch up? Like how do you think they should embrace AI or even data science? I mean, I like to point this question to Adrian. Adrian, you were saying that you're in one of those, in the AI space. But if it's from a business point of view, how do you envision that happens?
It's a really good question. And I think because I don't come from the very technical side, but I come more from the sales, commercial, strategy, transformation side. For me, I look at AI as an output. And I was on stage the other day and I said, and a few people chuckled, but I thought it was quite fair, is that in a way, from a business perspective, we're witnessing the next industrial revolution, because the three great business pillars that came out of the last one were efficiency, accuracy, and innovation. So when you think about that as an output of being able to understand, capture, manipulate and drive insights and actionable insights out of the data and out of the machine learning and the data science, you can start to apply that to multiple different types of industry. For example, healthcare. I work a little bit in healthcare in the company I'm in now, and if you think AI can analyze medical images faster and more accurately than humans, even from a diagnostic perspective, AI is already being used for drug discovery and personal treatment plans. And when you start just looking at that, and that's what's happening now. So does that mean in the next 10 years, we're going to be visiting robo-doctors? I think I saw that sci-fi movie. I'm not sure I liked it. But then I look at something more realistic like sales and marketing, and you start to look, and this is what I do nearly every day, and I start looking at it from a purely business perspective. When I look at the way that the industry is already transformed, because we're analyzing vast amounts of data, and so we can start to do things like provide personalized product recommendations, optimize pricing strategies, predict future buying behaviors. And if you put that into perspective, Amazon, it was the other day, it was in a McKinsey report, 35% of all Amazon sales are now being driven by the recommendation engine. Now, they've been working on that for more than a decade, right? So it's not new. It's just it's just become more appealing, and it's an AI and machine learning is the new buzz. So for me, it's all about output and being able to manipulate and action against data, and obviously in a compliant way.
So, Leslie, you mentioned that you are a gatekeeper for all this, So, in other words, sometimes companies that are really not AI, and probably you have to call it out. But here's also one of the biggest problem. For investors who probably may have a better understanding of AI, versus the traditional businesses and all, and probably even on the implementations of it. So you being in the venture building space, so how do you gatekeep all this where companies will come in and say, hey, you know what, we actually develop an AI algorithm, we develop AI tools, and we believe that we can revolutionize, or make changes to the traditional industry. I mean, this pertaining to the first question that I was asking. So how do you gatekeep between a real company that can really revolutionize it, or probably just the industry actually doesn't need an AI, need another AI company? You have any things that you can share?
Okay, generally, I mean, what does the investor want? Of course, they want the startup or the companies to grow, to be able to be relevant and survive over the next few years. So nobody want to put in money, when they know that business is not going to fit, is not going to do well, right? But of course, businesses, I think these days, they also like to call themselves AI, etc. So technically, we need to see whether do they have the capability. And to do that, we have to dive in to look at the resources. So resources, I'm talking about like, do they have the data to do that? So do they have the human resources, like, the data scientist or the AI engineer, etc., to work on the algorithm? Or if they already have a proprietary algorithm, so I have to step in and see, is it really the algorithm that is something that is unique? And of course, it have to be relevant to the business output of what they are saying as well, so that we can actually kind of like mitigate the risk, the investor risk, and see whether this company really have a big potential. And of course, this really require in-depth skills. Like, let's say if I give you an example, someone comes to me and they say they have this AI that is explainable, etc. So I myself, I need to have the technical knowledge to know what they are talking about, or probably to understand their algorithm as well. So to such extent, so that means I have to validate, but probably they may not be willing to share out their algorithm. So I have to kind of like, analyze from a different perspective. That means using my own skill set to see whether is it possible or is it doable. And of course, not forgetting whether do they have the resources, which I'm talking about the data resources, to do that and execute out what they plan to do.
I see. That's a very interesting perspective. So now to any of our speakers here, the thing is that everybody talking about AI, as what Leslie mentioned, there's a lot of training that require. Like in recent news, there have been a bit of a dispute. Some of the big tech companies actually start to use public domains content, like those YouTubers, TikTok, whatsoever. So they use hundreds, if not thousands of hours, and then to use that to train their tools. So the question here that a lot of people will always ask, so where does this, in terms of ethics, we need to sort of like have a certain ethics considerations. That does it mean that just because it's AI, just because it's data science, they are given a free pass? Just because you say, hey, I'm actually using this to do training. So in order to evolve the AI evolve, the AI, the data science technology. So we should actually allow them to have a free pass. I mean, what do you guys think?
Or maybe I can speak first. All right. My opinion on this is I'm actually pretty quite neutral about it. So if I think if we don't like give up a little bit of the privacy, we'll never have the training data. So let's take this example. Like we know that in China, where they are actually, the so-called communist country. So technically they are, harvesting a lot of data because of this social program where they have a lot of like CCTV, etc. So they are actually harvesting a lot of data. And this data will eventually, fit into some AI algorithm for to, to develop some proprietary AI algorithm. Whereas in the US, where there's a lot of these individual rights and the privacies, so their access to data is, I would say, that probably limited as compared with China. So my feeling is that US probably may lose out in the game because of the data. That's how I feel it.
Adrian, cool. What do you guys think?
See, for me, I don't necessarily think it's about the amount of data that's being ingested, if you like. I think it's more about what you do with the data and who wrote that data, where that data came from. And I think it's really important that the AI systems don't ultimately amplify existing biases, because that's what it's been trained on. So I would say bias, transparency, privacy, accountability, they all need to sort of be synergistic. And I would say, yes, I actually agree with Leslie's point. I think if you don't release a little bit of privacy, then you have no training data. But you've got to be consistent in where you don't take it from the left aisle or the right aisle, you take it from everywhere. So I would say it's probably, as AI becomes even more prevalent, it needs to be more around what accountability metrics can we put into it to ensure that these continue to that the biases aren't amplified. And I would say the GDPR in Europe is probably a good example of that. Probably gone a little bit too far, maybe debatable. But to Leslie's point, but I do think it's about what is ultimately output from that data as opposed to the data or the content you're consuming. Don't know if Q has a view on that.
Cool. Do you agree with that?
To a certain extent, yes. What I will say is there is a data advantage for any model trainers. That means the more data you get, the more variety of data that you get, right? The better your model is. However, I hold a different viewpoint in the sense that at the end of the day, data can only help to a certain extent when it comes to accuracy or when it comes to other performance metrics. And if you collect more data, right, because it has sort of hit a plateau, the increment is not going to be too large, I kind of feel. But having said that, the thing is, I also maybe to share with the audience a bit more, right, is while yes, we need to give up part of our data, right, so that the model can be trained to serve our purposes. My suggestion to all the participants or audience right now is you can choose what data you want to share. I think that's the key. If you feel that this is a data that you need to protect, then you shouldn't what I'll call cross the line. What I mean by cross the line, from offline to online. Because anything that's online, right, will definitely be used by any of these tech firms, right, for training. But you have a choice to decide which one cross that line. So that's for all.
Okay, so let's say, sorry, let me just challenge you on that.
Sure.
So when we talk about data that we want to share, but what about data that we had already make it available? I think this is a question that some of the YouTubers that been they lodge complaints saying that I have content that have been around for years or even decades or as early as when startups or YouTube started. So they already put in all the data down there.
Yeah.
So it become a public domain. So to them it's like, where do I draw the line that, because the thing is that I put it up to share publicly, but yet some of the AI companies harvest it, train it, and then they profit from it. So where does this, where do you draw the line as a consumer, as a corporate, or even as a government?
Okay, so if you this one is going to be a long history lesson. But just to cut it very short. At the end of the day, you have to realize this. Copyright doesn't really protect. Copyright only just lay the lines and say these are my properties. And if someone actually does cross it, right, from a court perspective, from a legal or court perspective, right, the onus is on you to actually prove that the other party has actually used your data. That's one. Second thing is also have profited from your data. And from what I understand and see, right, that's not going to be easy to prove. That's not going to be easy to prove. Like, let's say if I write a book and LLM, and I say that I know that LLM actually use my data to train, but how am I going to prove that my book is inside or as part of the training? It's very difficult to prove actually, unless you have a very specific prompt. But I don't know how specific the prompt is going to be. So that's only the first hurdle. The second hurdle then would be, how do I prove that they actually have profited from my data? So that's another hurdle. And I can simply tell you this, because if you look at how the models are being trained, right? Models are trained on billions and billions of data. So even if you say that, oh, you manage to prove all this, and you say, I want a piece of my profit, right? I can simply tell you the profit probably only a few cents. Then you probably will look at a few cents versus a legal cost, right? And start wondering, did I really make the right move or not? Yeah.
Okay, understand. Okay, so let's move on to another question. Okay, so while we are talking about so-called the dark side of the AIs and training, unauthorized whatever. Maybe speakers here, maybe you can share a bit about examples of actually how AI or even and the data science have actually been used to solve complex problems in a very unexpected ways. Maybe in the field that you're already in. Yeah. Adrian, Leslie, anyone?
Probably I can.
Go after you, Leslie, please.
Okay, all right. Probably I may able to start with something which I find it interesting and complex enough. So you see, I wonder if anyone here heard about Google DeepMind GraphCast. So it is an AI model, and what it does is something which they've came out probably like more than half a year ago. So what it does is that it actually make medium range global weather forecast. That means technically it can focus your weather, is it going to rain, etc. This sort of thing. And it have a very good accuracy, probably like we can say about like 90%. And it only takes like less than a minute to do the weather forecast. And this model is actually data driven, right? So it is trained on like, decades of weather data, probably like I think 40 years. And if we compare with the traditional model, which is based on the physics inspired mathematical model, so this is significantly better. And I would say that this is AI, And why I bring up this example, because I used to know, or rather I still know, I know some weather forecaster. They are scientists, graduate from MIT, etc., which they do weather forecasting. I know that it is a very tedious and a lot of effort to do the forecast, and it's always not too accurate. Locally and even in Europe as well. But what Google DeepMind has came out with this GraphCast model, it actually, give us better results and at a shorter times. So weather forecasting is actually a very complex model. So we can see, how AI is actually helping humanity in, I think in helping us to make a better world. That's how I see it.
Thanks. Adrian?
That's quite amazing. I was actually going to talk about climate change and Google as well, but I already talked about drug discovery and the ability to market digitally better, and I do that for a living. But how about an interesting one? So, and this was a Singapore one that was NUS researchers recently, the AIC. So this is discovered kind of accidentally through AI, and it allowed visually impaired people to see objects by putting objects in front of not the phone, but the device, and it would look at it and it would actually then give people information about exactly what it is so that they could see the object. So if we keep down the route of sort of world-changing, amazing things like Google DeepMind and climate change, I think that's a really quite an amazing example of where AI can be for the good, I would suggest.
Cool. You have anything to add?
Actually, I have two. So one of them is healthcare. I'm a strong believer that AI can be used, data and AI can be used in healthcare and education. So maybe let me share a healthcare example. One healthcare example that I think quite interesting is what's the word called? Rehabilitative. Okay. So what happened is a lot of other seniors, right, they're not that mobile, so they have to go through physiotherapies. But physiotherapists also are humans at the end of the day, so it's very difficult to actually measure whether the senior has actually improved in terms of physiotherapy. So this is where AI and sensor was actually used together, right, to detect even a very small amount of improvement for the seniors. And with that, right, the seniors actually can see there's improvement even though it's very small. So that will actually help build up confidence in their rehabilitation, in their physiotherapy. So that's something I think that's quite interesting. The other more interesting one that I've seen is simulation using data and AI to do flood simulation. Now the flood simulation, although can be done, but what they did was actually use it to calculate insurance premium to determine whether like in the different sort of rainstorm scenario and all this, right? Like, or maybe is it like 20 millimeters of rain, 30 millimeters of rain, right? Which places will actually get flooded and so on and so forth. And then from there, I calculate the flood premium for the different houses in that particular area, which I think is also quite interesting now. Although the output use cases is used for more commercial rather, yeah.
Yeah, that's quite interesting. So just to share one. So earlier on, I was actually on a con call with one of the top accelerator in the region. So just we were running through some cases, and one of the manager actually shared with us that in Italy, they work very closely with Italy for basically they call it elderly tech, or for better word. Okay, so basically to detect, to make sure that they are safe and everything. So it brought it to these questions like, AI can be used in a lot of things, from weapons to taking care of people to vehicles, climate change, and a whole bunch of all this. But what's interesting is that they were sharing with me about these case studies, is that well, I think similarly in Singapore, in Japan, a lot of countries where we have folks that are getting older and older. And then, for whatever reason, they may be at home alone. Okay, they may be alone. So, so there have been quite, in fact, even in Singapore itself, that there have been quite increased cases of where old folks pass away, died alone. Like just moments ago, before I joined this this Zoom call, talking to a partner. Apparently, they just discovered the uncle, a grand uncle, has actually passed away in their own house here in Singapore. And by the time they, went in to look for him, he has passed on for quite a while. So there've been a lot of discussions. And one of the case study was that they're actually putting on smart ring. Okay, putting on a smart ring on the finger, of the elder folks, and then not doing the Bluetooth, not doing the synchronizations, but they basically have a portal, okay, like a router like that, and then let's sync, so that if there's any changes in the, whether is it the heartbeats or blood pressure, ECG, whatsoever, they can quickly alert folks that is probably their nearby neighbors, police, ambulance, or nurses to actually take care of it. I think these are pretty good directions of where AI can help, where especially in places like Singapore, where I think hiring nurses and all this is almost impossible. Yeah, so this is just one of the things. Yeah. So thanks for the contributions, for sharing. So now let's jump into something that is always a question that is whether is it a right or wrong. I think I like to ask about in terms of data privacy and security. Okay, we are not talking so much about taking public information and then getting them to train. But what I'm talking about here is that in terms of what role do you really see? What role do you see for AI in enhancing data privacy and security, especially now with especially those increasing of data breaches. So now when we talk about whether it's a PDPA, GDPR, whatsoever. So whenever there's a breach, we are not talking about 500 people, 200 people. We're talking about millions, and typically is double digits of millions of any profiles. Not only just your credit cards, your password, and there's nothing. But the worst are those that they actually know where you've been. Okay, and then they're able to print out every single thing. So like, for example, if you happen to be a naughty boy, okay, it can probably cause your marriage, the stuff like that. So what role do you see AI is in this space of enhancing data privacy and security? To the floor.
I think can I say something? So I think for this aspect, probably what Paddy talking about is we may want to identify potential breach. That means, before things happen, or I think this is more into the cybersecurity where, you have some hackers that attack into the system, and so that the AI system can kind of like detect anomalies, so that once something of this thing happen, once we have such behavior, so the model can actually kind of like trigger to stop that intrusion. I mean, I'm not exactly a cybersecurity guy, but I know that with the data and the AI algorithm, technically you can do that without much difficulties.
I think to add on to Leslie, what you are saying here is that let's say for example my house. Okay, so I have a smart doorbell. So basically it will keep the database of all the people who's in and out. So anyone that is being recognized, whether is it my kids, my wife, anybody or my helper. So once it recognizes, it doesn't send you any alert. Okay. But whenever there are delivery guys who come in, they will probably able to do a comparison, and
Yes.
then the chances of them, how frequent they are, stuff like that. It can actually detect like, probably this delivery guy tends to take care of this whole place. So do I want to red flag it or do I want to green flag it? I think something like that. That's more on the data, but that one is more for the consumer side. But what happens if we were talking about something that's not just consumer itself, but we are talking about the corporate level, on the enterprise level, or even on the government level? Guys, what do you guys think?
I think detection of anomalies can be applied to enterprise level as well. Right. Yeah. So it's like what you mentioned is like, when things are not behaving normally, that means something out of the norm. So they'll kind of like trigger action, So that will probably like alert the real cybersecurity guy probably to decide whether is this an intrusion or not, to prevent any further damage to the system, like let's say losing more data, etc. So I think this kind of thing, I think AI does help and been used in the cybersecurity side.
I see. Cool. You were trying to say something earlier.
I think okay, so I think it's naive thinking if you think that the black hat hacker are not going to use AI to attack any network and company's website. So at the end of the day, I do strongly believe also like white hat hackers, right, also need to or cybersecurity people, right, personnel need to also deploy AI agents, right, to protect the network and also the website as well. So I think like what Leslie mentioned, right, outliers are outliers in terms of maybe not the normal usage, like detecting abnormal anomalies and all these, right? Then I think that's where AI can come in the picture as well. But I think I also want to put in a different perspective, and that is, if you're going to use AI agent to do anomaly detection, we have to be very careful with false positive and false negatives, especially false negatives. My take will always be this: as long as you're using machine learning, right, to do classification / detection, right, you have to have processors, right, to deal with false negatives, because false negatives are the ones that are going to give you a lot more problem if you do not have a process to handle them as compared to false positives. Yeah.
Yeah, just imagine every Chinese guy with mustache is a father. Every woman who wear a dress is the mother. That will be a chaotic, man. Let's see, you wanted to say something?
Yeah, I want to add on to what Ku and what I said earlier on. So with the AI agent, technically, we can also use AI agent for rate theming. That means using the AI agent to kind of like to test our system to see whether how good our system is, protecting against all these kind of like breaches.
Okay. Yeah, I agree with you. So now one question that always a lot of people is if you're running a startup and somehow in between, you're developing something similar, and then only to realize that AI can actually do quite a lot of what you are doing. So question here will be, okay, I mean to everybody here. Okay. So if let's say if you as being a startup itself, should you actually start leveraging on AI and data science to compete with the larger or if not well-established firms? Okay, let me just paraphrase it. Maybe 5, 10, 20 years ago, you start your own business and you do not have enough manpower, do not have enough resources or whatsoever. And it's almost impossible for you to so-called fight against the big boys. But now with AI tools, okay, you don't really necessarily have to develop everything yourself. There are a lot of tools out there that tie in with the API, pay-per-use, and stuff like that. Okay, or even like Zapier, you can actually put them together. If to do this, to do that, if to that, to do this, that kind of thing. So from the experience from the three of you, okay, I think I probably add up to almost about 200 years. Okay, so in terms of the startup itself, should a startup or even smaller companies actually leverage on AI and data science to compete with the big boys? If it's a yes, what kind of tips would you like to give, or what kind of suggestion or recommendations would you like to give? I saw Adrian unmute already. He's already on standby. Come, Adrian, go ahead.
I think that's a really, really good question. It shows why these panels are so valuable. I would actually preface it with, and I work with a lot of startups and small businesses as well, and I would preface this with, see AI as an opportunity and not a threat. There are many companies, even big companies that I chat to, who look at it and go, I know I've got to do it, I don't understand it, what do I do? So I think there's kind of two main points to it. One, there are things that the startup can do. Let's come back to that. But the other thing is, we've got to, as a panel, as experts in our field, as even the Singapore government's doing at the moment, we've got to be able to demystify what AI is, just like we're trying to do today, which will boost adoption and raise awareness, and around data ethics as well. And that will also then, in theory, deliver more opportunities. But let's answer the actual question. But I think it's very important to say that. A few immediate things that a company can do immediately is focus on niche markets and customers, personalize customer experiences, optimize their operations. So you run a HubSpot, run a Zapier, run a CRM program. These don't cost very much money, but you can use AI-driven analytics to understand customer behavior and run very targeted marketing campaigns more than you would ever do. So higher performing advertising or marketing, lower wastage of media dollar, right? Number one, very, very important. Number two, avoid huge upfront costs by leveraging cloud-based AI services, AWS, Google Cloud, Microsoft Azure, those kind of guys. they're very practical applications that one can do straight away. But I would actually go slightly wider than that. And it's the same thing I say to my friends and other people when they come and ask me this question is boost your own AI knowledge. It can be very daunting going into something you don't understand, but try and do it from a career development and business sort of efficiency perspective. There's loads and loads and loads of courses out there from big tech to very small companies. Finding a good one can be challenging, to be honest, and finding one that is not biased, maybe to big tech. So it's sometimes hard to find the good from, well, the bad. But it's very important to do that and ask friends for recommendations, those kind of things. But whatever you're doing, you've got to put it into practice. So apply AI into daily operations, whether it's increased sales performance, product development, data interpretation, or just driving efficiency through automation. Those sort of things are critical to do, right?
But Adrian, I understand where you're coming from, but what happened if I'm someone who's actually, you know, I started my own business. My business, nothing much to do with tech per se, other than sending emails, sending WhatsApp, you know, that kind of stuff. So for me is that if let's say I'm running a SME, I'm running a startup, and my objective is to make money to survive, you know, especially now, thanks to the government, our GST is 9%, you know, that kind of nonsense. So if we were to do that, so as someone who's actually not a tech company, tech based, how should I actually go about doing where, you know, I don't have the kind of time to sit down. I mean, this is one of the biggest problems. I think a lot of people are also exhausted and also tired, saying that, you know, today you're talking about this. Tomorrow, even before I figure out what's going on, the next new technology comes in. And then I also do not know, should I actually put in money? Like, for example, cybersecurity. It was never a known thing to the commoners. They were like, nah, I'm too small to be hacked, you know, that kind of nonsense. But in the end, when you got hacked, then it's okay, shit, I should put in my money and then I start to invest. So, but I mean, there's no right or wrong answer. But what I'm saying is that, but for a lot of small companies, when they themselves do not know what kind of technology should they adopt to prepare themselves, but yet at the same time, they probably, you know, only have a small sum of money or resources to put it in. If that is the case, where do they draw the line? Should they outsource this whole entire? Have someone come in, consult them, you know, give them advice, or should they be like, I just pass this whole entire thing and pay on the retainer fee, pay on the subscription fee, and then you take care of it? Where do we strike the balance? I mean, open to all three speakers.
Let me just follow up on that. So it will really depend on the size of the company and what the objective is. If it's about delivering business performance, go and find a course or a consultant or an expert who can help you understand those specific tools and, frankly, the best practice that you may or may not be implementing anyway to deliver that and the AI tools around it. Now, that's practical application. If you're talking about cybersecurity and those kind of things, you have to go and talk to someone who understands it. You could sit, I could go and sit and read a thesis. I could talk to Q and Leslie all night about the intricacies of cybersecurity. I still wouldn't understand it at the end of it. So I'd need to go and either sit through a training course, a workshop, or just outsource the entire thing to someone. And that will then come down to, because no amount of reading will help that. That will then come down to the budgets and the desirability of actually doing that versus the 10 other things you've got to spend money on, and you've got to learn which could be applying an AI tool and best practice to increase your margin or reduce your cost. So I think it's a very valid question, but I think you've got to look at it in the sphere of business. So some things you'll have to go to an expert on, some things you can go and play with, but ultimately don't make drastic changes, just make changes and learn from people and learn from workshops and learn from experts and reading to then be able to deliver something slowly but specifically, literally the next day. Don't be afraid to try stuff. That would be what I'd say on that. That's
interesting. I saw that Ku has unmute and for a long time.
He did.
So I think he's on the standby. Ku, are you on the standby now?
Yeah, sort of. Let me add on a bit more. So just the thing, I look at the startup space and all this, right? At the end of the day, what you should plan to do is understand what are the possible use cases in your startups for data at least. For data analytics, and for AI at least. This is where I agree with Adrian. We need to it's best to pay for a consultant to come in and look at it and tell you what are the use cases. Then subsequently later on, if you want to think about doing the use cases or you want to outsource, that one could be a business consideration. You can think about it later. But my suggestion is after you know the use cases, you just have to start planning how to collect the data, because good quality data needs plans to do that. You need to plan to collect good quality data. And the thing is this, if you're a startup and you're competing with a larger company, right? Don't think that the larger company actually has an advantage over you in terms of data. Because if you look at just data alone, there are many different dimensions you can look at it. The two dimensions you can look at it will be quality and quantity. And another one is variety. So bigger companies, in terms of data collection, their quantity is large, for sure. That will be the case. But a startup can compete on variety and quality of the data. If you are able to collect good quality data, and if you're able to collect a good variety of data, actually that is very valuable by itself already. And we haven't even gone into use cases yet. Yeah.
Okay, that's interesting. That's interesting. Leslie, yeah, I saw you on mute also. I'm observing you guys. Okay.
I think one good example is if you look at this French company Mistral, they actually, use good quality data and have a generative AI that can compete with OpenAI, right? So, and I think, okay, that is one point. So for the startup and SME side, I mean, I want to reiterate again, say that they actually should focus on the niche application. I think Adrian have mentioned about it, and Adrian and Ku generally sum it all. So I just like to add on is for the startup and SME, right? Is knowing what, when, and how to use the new knowledge to enhance themselves to compete against the bigger enterprise. So it is a long process because you have to balance between your business, whether are you getting revenue and also, putting the money in for the education as well. So, but I think that, startup and SME should not overlook, education part of it.
Okay. Okay, that's interesting. Okay, so we have hit around 8:45. There have been a series of questions in the chat box. So to facilitate it, I will just read it out, and it's open to to the floor. So let's start off with the very first one. This is from Andrew. Okay, this is what he wrote. As more and more AI tools use the same pool of training and resource information, and as they continually return their collective responses to the same pool, what is the danger that AI just become as a fast track, to a seamless? So the great hope is that AI will be an accelerator of great innovations by turbocharging human abilities to explore the fringes. But its fundamental concept points it in the opposite directions. What are your views and how we can control it? You can actually take a look at your chat box also. Yeah. Anybody want to attempt to answer these questions from Andrew?
Maybe let me be the first to tackle it. So the thing is this: if you want innovation, if you want originality, depending on how you of course define innovation or originality, I would say don't be reliant too much on AI. So I recently was thinking about this issue as well. So I was posed this question. So do you think that authors, people who write articles and all this, right? Should they be using LLMs to assist in the writing? So when I was looking at it, right, I kind of feel that you have to know that at the end of the day, right, LLMs or most of these AIs, right, what they do is they sort of regress to the mean. They will always go to the sort of the mean that all we humans cannot comprehend at the end of the day, depending on the data that is collected. And if you look at it, right, it's going to be usually average, if you all get what I mean. So the way I look at it is this: if you want originality, you want creativity, at the end of the day, sorry, you have to use that gray matter that's between the ears. You have to put that into the thought process. You have to do the thinking, right, if you want to push the frontier. And I do agree with what Andrew mentioned in the sense that AI can push you close to the frontier, but at the end of the day, we need the gray matter that's between our ears, right, to move the frontiers further out.
Okay. Adrian or Leslie, anything to add onto that?
I can add on it from a non-technical perspective. I'd say if you're only looking at AI and trying to make it less homogenous, because we're talking about AI homogeny here, I guess, I'd be looking at incorporating niche data sets, non-English language content, because a lot of them work on English, and then data from other cultural contexts. Just the more niche, it's about diversity, right? And then diversity of human oversight, human reviewer. Have somebody who sits there, has someone who has a view over there, maximize, continue to maximize it up. So you've got diversity of content, which we touched on earlier, diversity of content and particularly language and text, but also diversity of human reviewer. And maybe one day, if some of the big tech decide that they're slightly more open in their practices, maybe sharing of knowledge and regulations so that the regulatory bodies might be able to help actually make that slightly less homogenized over time. And that's a bit of a pipe dream maybe, but I definitely go for diversity of content and human reviewers. I think human oversight, I guess.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, that's a very good question, and I think the answers itself, well, may not answer everything because as we all know, AI is still evolving, and a lot of things are still need to catch up. I mean, it's always the case, right? Technology always drive, and then followed by the rest of the administrative. Okay, so there's another question. So how can we ensure transparency, accountability, and fairness in AI decision-making processes? Is from one of the audience here. Anybody want to take the answer? I'll take the question.
I can take you some first, then if that's okay. If you ask me transparency, the answer is no. Yeah, especially if you're using deep learning models and neural network, right? Transparency is lost once you train a model. Accountability at the end of the day really relies on the framework, the law framework, the guideline framework that we have. So how can we ensure accountability? So that one again, really depends on different industry, which is the law industry. And if you want to go a bit more philosophical, will be depending on the jurisprudence on the different countries. Fairness in AI and decision making, I would say that one is more dependent on the designer of the AI model. The person, when it designs the AI model, right, what is the kind of performance he or she is thinking about when it comes to decision making? Are we going for fairness? Are we going for equality? And so on and so forth. So at the end of the day, yeah, all these actually are different things to different AI model trainers and all this. So it really depends on the model trainer at the end of the day. I'll feel. Yeah.
Okay. Let's see. You anything you want to add on?
I think can I add on? I think it also depends on the data. With regards to biasness, right? So you know that data are generally generated by us human beings. So there is an inherent biasness in the data. So we can't expect the model which is trained upon the data to be totally unbiased. So do recognize that. But then, of course, we are not saying that we allow the model to reach extreme biasness, So it all depends on the data which is trained on. So supposingly, like let's say data in Singapore, like 70% of population is Chinese. So any model trained on that is going to, emulate the Chinese behavior or Chinese output. So you kind of expect to say that, okay, the model will come out like, sometimes you give output of a foreigner or probably from the Malay race or the Indian, etc. This sort of thing. So you can't expect a equal proportion among those response because of the inherent biasness in the data. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, thanks. That's something new. That's really something new. Okay, hey, thanks for the replies. Okay, so there's actually a couple of more questions. Okay, this is from Doris. What are the biggest challenges facing the AI and data science community in Asia or global market in the coming years, and how might that impact AI users or organizations? Well, it's quite similar to one of the questions that was asked to the speakers earlier. But probably anybody want to do a quick one on this?
So can I
Yeah, go ahead.
what's the question again? What might be the top three?
No, not top three. It's basically this question is actually from Doris. So she wants to know what are the biggest challenges, facing these AI and data science community. I mean, in the world, and how will it actually impact, especially in the coming years? The biggest challenges that we face.
I would think that if I'm getting this question correctly, right, I would think that probably the biggest challenge is a lot of startups, a lot of companies, they don't really quite understand the scene, So like the word, people tends to use Gen AI as the equate it with AI, but AI generally consists of ML, generative AI, etc. And their behavior and their performance are all different. So I would say that, get an understanding of what are the tools available and knowing how to use it exactly will probably help them quite a lot.
I think just to add on to this, I think this is also one of the challenges. I'm a dad of two kids. I think if you're telling me, hey, crypto, blockchain, I think a lot of us were like, okay, so if you went crazy over those because you were worried, okay, seems like blockchain is going to be everything, and no, that's when the thing started. Then later on, you realize, hey, you know what? In a practical sense, not everything need blockchain. So similarly, lots of us went through a lot of cycles. Like, okay, they were saying, you know what? A lot of people are gonna use VR, gonna wear AR. You don't really have to go out of the house. And guess what? It was a COVID that actually caused us to stay at home instead of AR. So in the case of AI, okay, or even data science, me as a parent, I also worry that, hey, you know what? Just like any other thing, if you don't get your kids to start learning about AI, start learning about data science, they may be left behind. And this is what the mainstream media always tell you, saying that, guys, OpenAI just launched, Gemini just launched, go pay $20 and adapt it, adopt it. Okay, so now here's the thing. Over time, people get exhausted. Okay, they were like, oh, it's still another tech to catch up, still another tech to catch up. I think this is also one of the biggest challenge that a lot of parents is like, how much more money am I going to spend on something that I may or may not know that is actually, the next frontier or the next trend? I mean, pertaining to what Doris asked. So I think that there isn't really a guideline these days to say, yes, you must adopt or you must invest time and resources. If it's not, you will get left behind. I think for those who don't intend to do it, say, hey, I'm not going to catch up with AI because for all I know is that today's AI, in another 5 years, the AI will probably be very different. And I may not even have to learn how to do coding because the AI of 5 years later may be able to do everything. So when that happens, it created a lot of challenges, not just for the people who don't adapt it or even people who adopted it too early and only to realize that not all the technology is actually a must, in that sense. I'm just no, because I got a questions that was sent to me directly. So I'm sort of like answering. Oh, there are people entering now. Okay, so I'm sort of like answering it on behalf also. Okay, now there's actually a couple more questions. I may not be able to answer all, or I may not be able to share all. But so maybe I'll just quickly throw it over. Okay, so here's the thing. One of the questions is, okay, yeah. So how can education system adapt to prepare the next generation for AI and data science? I think that one is sort of answered already. Okay, this one I probably need some help regarding to the principle of. Okay, I just spell it just in case. GIGO. Okay, GIGO depends how you pronounce. To AI and data science, how to mitigate bias and AI data science. Okay, this is quite similar to what Leslie actually answered about, if it's adopting it from a bunch of Singaporeans, Chinese, so you may have some form of biasness. But I'm actually not very familiar with this GIGO. Anybody want to take a step on this?
GIGO actually stands for garbage in, garbage out.
Yeah, correct. You want to expand from that?
So regarding the principle of garbage in, garbage out, how to mitigate bias of AI and data science. I think like what Leslie mentioned, right? At the end of the day, your data cannot be totally rid of biasness. So what is more important as a next step, right, is the awareness. Be aware of where the biases possibly are, and then mitigate it through your training process. So that could be one. Another thing is if you can even bring it way even earlier, right, that will be at the data collection part, at the data collection process. So that's why I said you need to plan your data collection. If you plan your data collection well, you will have a very good idea where are the possible biases that you might have, and then you can start planning on the mitigation process on how to reduce the biasness in your model. Yeah.
What happened if I do not want to clean up? I purposely introduce rubbish in the hope that the result that comes out will actually bias towards me, that I give me an advantage. I mean, because ultimately all the data are being trained in a certain aspects. So if I were to introduce certain data, like for example, like now, Donald Trump, this in the presidential race now, in the US presidential race, and we can see very, very clear. Certain news will generate certain reports that pertaining and the so-called support on the other end, whereas the others may not. And then they actually claim that this is actually part of AI, getting the views from everybody or the doings of everybody. So if this is the case, I know I may not get an answer, but I mean this this is something that rubbish in, rubbish out, garbage in, garbage out. But if you were to manipulate it, will that actually be consistently creating problem for people who actually build on the results that is AI generated?
So at the end of the day, then it's a question of whether the person got hurt by the model decision or not, right? So if you get hurt by the model decision at the end of the day, there's a very good chance that you're going to steer away from the model. But if you actually benefited from it, then there's a good chance that you will get closer, or I won't say get closer, you actually will use the AI model a lot more often because it reinforces your if you ask me, reinforces your inherent biasness at the end of the day, right? Yeah.
Okay,
and I like to take this and bring it back to what I think Doris was answering. What I think the bigger challenge and all this, right? I think the bigger challenge right now for the whole world, I'm not kidding when I say that, right? It's about literacy. I think it's high time a lot of us be literate about technology, followed by be literate about data. So when I say be literate about data, means what? It means you understand what data is about, what kind of signal does the data send out, and because that's very important, that will decide what kind of data you are going to give out there into the online world versus what you're going to keep it to yourself. As someone who does data, I have that kind of training, so not too bad. But for other people, right, it's good for them to have some idea, like, oh, when I give out this data, like for instance, let's say if I tell someone, hey, I like yogurt, what kind of signal are you sending? What kind of signal are you sending? I think that's for people to appreciate. And then from data literacy, right, you have to go into AI literacy, understand how AI works. Because once you have a good understanding of how AI works, you will then have a very good idea about all these AI models that is right in front of you, right? Are they working for you or are they working against you? That would be an important point to important literacy to also have as well going forward.
Okay, thank you. Okay, so well, it's 9:05, but anyway, let's continue to ask a few more questions. I'll try to clear as much as possible. Those are similar one, I'll just put it aside first. Okay, so yeah, there's a question: how can AI be integrated with other emerging technologies such as a blockchain or quantum computing to create new capabilities? Like any of the uncles here want to answer? Leslie?
I don't know. I mean, I know a little bit of things on blockchain. So technically, because I did mine before previously. So one possible way is, let's say, to integrate the blockchain with AI. I think, it could be like in the direction of security. That means, that we have heard cases where, some of the blockchain network it hacked, etc. This sort of thing. So this will, stream down to cybersecurity. So you can actually kind of like implement some of the AI agent or the algorithm for this, uh, possible breaches onto the blockchain network. That is one example which I can think of lah. On quantum side, I think that's too deep for me.
But do you guys see these three things as the same? Or rather, let me just emphasize, do you see like AI, blockchain, quantum computing as equal? Because I think today's in the world that we live in, there's a lot of big words. There's always a lot of big words. And sometimes the big words may not be talking about a certain function or features. It may be a concept, it may be linear, it may be diagonal. Okay, cool. You already unmute yourself. I guess you got an answer for me.
No, I think at the end of the day, the more important thing is what kind of value does it provide you when all these technology come together at the end of the day. So I mean, I hear a lot of all these, like I've seen groups, right, where they say that, oh, actually we do ABC, we do AI, blockchain, cybersecurity. Then I say, okay, sure, no problem. So you're doing ABC. Can you tell me how you integrate all these different technology? No, they're actually separate technology. So I think at the end of the day, what's more important is this: if you want to integrate the different technology, what kind of value does it bring to your business? Because each technology by itself, right, is very expensive in the first place to do it, let alone you want to combine them together. Yeah.
Okay, thank you. That's a good question. Okay, because of there's a bit of time constraint, so there will be quite a lot of some questions that may not be able to be answered all. I just post a website, which is startupvillage.asia. Some of the questions that may not be answered here, we'll post it over the other site. Free login, just go ahead and answer some questions and answer, and take a look at all this. But now, I think there are also quite a few questions that actually came in. I will probably just summarize in a way, because I also don't want to delay too long. Okay, so a couple of questions which I have it here. I'll just probably ask it verbally. Okay, here's a question. Now, in terms of AI and data science, okay, how much of the percentage should we actually put it in if I'm a startup? Okay, let me just this was exactly how it types. Let me just rephrase it. I will take it as the person who asked is probably running a startup. Okay, I think he or she will probably have some resources constraint, and also I mean I invest in startup and stuff like that. I know in the startups you probably only have that kind of numbers of people, resources, that kind of time that you have. But knowing that we got to go forward with AI adoptions or even data science and all this, in terms of a typical, how much resources should we actually allocate to it? Now, should we actually put it in, like, put half of the tech team to look into the AI portions? Because even if you want to adopt from third party, okay, you still need to have someone to be a gatekeeper, someone to test it out, someone to see whether is it good or not good. Typically, if a company like a startup wants to move forward that, how much kind of resources should they actually put in? Any suggestion, guys?
Can I answer? I think
Hey,
it all.
can go ahead.
I think it all depends on the startup. What are they trying to solve? So it has to be something. This is where they actually need to empower themselves with the AI knowledge or data science knowledge to see whether can they use this newfound knowledge onto their application, what they want to solve, right? But generally, for startup, which they have their own unique proposition, but they can tap on AI. Let's talk about Gen AI to help them in some of their business processes. So let's say the startup is going to do some marketing of their product, etc., this sort of thing. And because they have to bootstrap, they don't have so much money to spend. They can actually use the Gen AI to help them in producing marketing content or material, or even some of the business process that probably they may not be aware or understand well. They can just consult the Gen AI to give them some basic guideline first, and also probably help them to generate certain content and then refine from there. This will actually kind of like escalate their business processes. That's how I think.
Okay, thanks, Leslie. Adrian, anything from yourself?
Yeah, I'd echo a lot of what Leslie just said. And for me, it's about what's the value exchange, either for the business or for the customer. So if you're a consumer business and you've got people manning the phones or sending emails, can you plug in a chatbot? Is it actually going to deliver what you need? Just as a silly example, if you're having to do very expensive marketing to attract high net worth individuals, or I don't know, chief marketing officers of businesses, then it's going to be very expensive to do that. But maybe you can actually understand more about your customer base and where they go online, and actually classify that audience in a different way, and then use algorithmic data and insights to then be able to go and find them in a more cheap way. And then on top of that, then actually capture the understanding of, I spoke to them with this message. Did they see it? If they saw it, did they convert? How much did it cost me? Did they actually then convert longer tail? So you can start to look at an end-to-end journey, whether you're B2B or B2C or B2B2C, it doesn't matter. It's the same principle, and you can use AI to drive marketing performance and understand your customers much better, which, to then build on Leslie's point, if you don't have the skill set or the ability or the bandwidth to be able to then go and create content to market people, that's when you go to a ChatGPT or one of the others, or a Gemini or something, and start to ask it for advice. I would absolutely caution just taking it and putting it live. I think that you have to have human eyeballs on everything. You can't just take it and run with it and hope for the best, because all sorts of issues. But the more you can drive efficiency or perform, and that could be performance within your business, that's where the value exchange is for the AI, for using AI and spending a bit of money and spending a bit of tech resource to do it. Again, it could be automation of CRM as well. There are many different aspects. I'm very happy to talk to people about that separately if they want to reach out, and I can help explain that in more detail, because it's probably another hour's session, to be honest, to explain automated customer marketing.
Okay, so we are coming to 9:15. Okay, so here's one question. I hope all three of you will be able to share your opinion. So, where do you think, or what do you think will happen in the next 6 to 9 months time? We're not talking about 5 years. I think it doesn't work anymore with the AI. What do you think will happen in the next 5 to 9 months time? I mean, for example, Elon Musk just filed a second lawsuit, to OpenAI. And then we have people complaining that you stole data from the content, and lawsuits is being prepared, stuff like that. And some of these guys are saying that we are going to integrate AI in almost anything, everything, from the toilet bowl, to computer, to laptops, or even phones. Just draw a couple of pictures, and then you can actually pop up a beautiful butterfly where your drawing still doesn't improve overnight. So 6 to 9 months time, where do you think AI and data science will be to the floor? Okay, cool.
Well, I think if we're talking about 9 months time, I do think that we will still be very much focused on what LLM can do and cannot do, and also a lot more on generative AI and stuff like that. Because we're starting to see a bit of a small signal of it, and that is Sora. I don't know whether you all know about Sora. So Sora is actually a video generation model, and I do think that maybe in the next 5 to 9 months, you probably will see a lot more on that what we call a multimodal generative model. That's that. Second thing is also, I do believe that everyone should start learning about what LM can or cannot do. I think that's also going to be a very key important factor, because LM is going to be very useful for research and writing. But but when I say writing, it's not generally all kind of writing is good to use LM. There are certain writings that may not be that useful. Yeah. But I think it's a good productivity tool at the end of the day to use to start learning about what LM can or cannot provide. Yeah.
Thanks, cool. Yep. Next better player.
I'll take that one maybe. I foresee over the next 6 to 9 months, was it? I foresee there is already a growing chasm between businesses, particularly smaller businesses, to build on my last point. Those who are not embracing anything to do with AI and those who are. I see more businesses realizing that they have to embrace it and they have to do something with it. And therefore I see hopefully more people becoming more educated in it and not being afraid of it. And I'll give you a stat to back it up. World Economic Forum, I was reading this just this morning, predicts AI will create 97 million jobs globally by 2025 while displacing 85 million. Now, that's a scary thought, and what you classify as an AI job is up to you, but it's already showing there'll be more AI jobs being built than there will be being displaced. And that's by 2025. So that's what, 9 months away.
So in other words, Adrian, do you think that for those who do not adapt or adopt AI, they may actually be left behind much faster and earlier than they anticipated? Do you see it this way?
I think there is a strong possibility, depending on their business and the evolution of their business, that they may end up either burning more money or becoming less relevant to their consumers, because people will find more consumers and be able and understand how to communicate with them in the right way, in more interesting ways, and therefore building longer term value within that customer. Because a lot of customers now want to be spoken to one-to-one, right? And they want to be that's how they interact, and it will be digital mostly, unless the business is very, very different, of course, and we have to acknowledge that.
Okay, I see. Yeah, thanks for the answer. Because I see this way is that lots of people are still sitting on the fence. If they want to actually spend more money, or will probably end up spending money and going nowhere. I think this is where education definitely has to come in quite a fair bit. Yeah. Leslie, on your end?
My thoughts is, I think probably the hype might die down a little bit, but it will still be noisy. If you heard earlier when Ku spoke, right, he only used the word LLM instead of like saying or ChatGPT, etc. So what ChatGPT or Google Gemini, they are just only a language model. So which means that they can do language very well, but we should not, put any expectation onto them and think that this ChatGPT or Google Gemini can rationale very well. In fact, I don't think the current model, the current architecture will empower this generative AI to have such rational thinking, etc. So
are you referring? Sorry, let me interrupt you. Are you referring to just like text-based, or are you referring to like
text-based,
text to video and all this?
Text to video, we are talking about multimodals, etc. So that aspect, I think things will get better. So like what Ku mentioned about Sora, I mean, I know of it as well. And of course, some of the, usually I call those are the computer vision generative AI. So we can see that I think there's not a lot of effort focusing on to those area, but I think that gradually over the next 6 to 9 months, we will see better models coming out of that, right? So you probably can have like, like content creator trying to produce a video up to like 5-10 minutes. I think that will be doable. I think probably it should be doable by then. I think currently with Sora, etc., I think it's only able to produce video up to probably like 1 minute, 1 or 2 minutes. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I heard from a friend. That ponds actually start adopting all this. They don't really need to last for 1 minute. Some of them just last for 30 minutes, and then they give you clips and clips of it. I mean, that's what I heard from. Maybe if it's for education purposes, I'll probably have to study and let you guys know. But I think one of the things that I realized is that pornography, those triple X, whatever, they tend to adopt a lot of this kind of new technology. I still remember when 3G first came in, and I was actually in Germany, and there are actually people watching porn on the 3G phone. It was like, how? But anyway, it works. So I don't know where these 6 to 9 months may be, but I think in terms of the entertainment, all this, I think a lot more contents will actually be rolled out, and it may probably even be a bit of a hybrid that we can't really differentiate between is it real or is it not real. I mean, there's a lot of movies are already like that. I mean, you don't really expect to see a real dragon, right? So thank you very much for tonight. And for those questions that have not been able to be answered, I'm sorry. But please drop by to startupvillage.asia. You can take a look at the chat box. We'll be putting up some of the questions down there. And if you do have your own questions, please feel free to put it up there. Hopefully, the 3 speakers here take some time to log in and then try to answer it, because this is actually public. So whatever questions that's being asked, hopefully anybody else who actually understand can please feel free to reply on that. And also another thing, I just shared an article actually written by Ku. Okay, it's regarding what is in this website called AI in Asia. It's actually it's sort of becoming one of my favorite news portal to talk about the stuff about Asia, more localized lah. Yeah, take a look at what I just shared on the chat box. Click it before you exit. Yeah, this is what Ku wrote. Whether is it right or not wrong. Anyway, you may want to take a screenshot. That's how it looks like. If it's wrong, go after him. Okay. So and thanks for the time, Leslie. If you guys are looking to get funded, bounce off some ideas. Is it a hocus pocus AI or just is it a real AI? I think Leslie will probably be the right guy for you to talk to. And then regarding in terms of the marketing, in terms of the digital, especially digital marketing, so positioning, brandings, and stuff like that, I think Adrian is actually the right guy to. And this guy is actually doing a M&A cleanup now. I think that's amazing, especially in the era of AI. So as for Ku, not only he writes, but he's actually a certified trainer in a lot of our local universities, and also at the same time, in his personal capacity, he actually trained. Even like people like us, we actually get trained people like him also. So anyway, thank you very much for everybody. We will continue, to share some of these, hopefully useful panel discussions on our website, startupstorm.asia. Just feel free to log in and then, just take a look at some of the panel discussion that we had, for the past few years. Thank you very much, and hope everybody has a great night. Thank you.
Thank
Thank
you,
you, everyone.
guys. Thank you.